Being an amazing product marketing leader doesn't happen by chance. It happens by habit. Product marketing certified leadership has been built on the back of decades worth of experience from some of the world's best known brands with one goal in mind: helping you be the best leader you can be. Crammed with real life case studies, over 12 hours worth of content, templates, exams, and more, this course is everything you need to lead with authority, confidence, influence, and innovation. Every piece of material within the 7 modules and 29 chapters has been vetted, tested, and approved by senior level product marketers from companies like Amazon, Uber, and HubSpot, serving up game-changing insights throughout. By the time you've wrapped up the final module, you'll be able to define what it takes to be a great product marketing leader, build and scale your team, understand how to successfully manage your existing team, use methods for leveraging data, know how to become the voice of the customer, understand how teams work cross-functionally, and improve your strategic thinking. The beauty of the course is you'll have the freedom to work your way through the modules at a pace to suit you. It's 100% self-paced. You'll even get lifetime access to the curriculum, paving the way for refresher sessions forevermore. Visit productmarketingalliance.com to get leadership certified and spearhead your journey to the top.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for being here with me today for the art of positioning. My name is Carrie Smith, and I'm excited to be here to talk about product positioning and how we think about positioning and messaging when we launch new products and features at Salesforce. Now, in the event that I happen to talk about any products or features, please make all purchasing decisions based on what is currently available in the market today. So like I said, my name is Carrie Smith. So just a little bit of background. I've been at Salesforce for about 4 years now, and I've had the opportunity to be part of a lot of really cool launches and work on a lot of really cool products that span across, a variety of clouds or, individual products and lots of different features. But I'm really excited to be here today because we don't always get the opportunity to talk about the fundamentals of marketing. And that's what I wanted to do a little bit today, just share some stories and some experiences of marketing, specifically about, positioning that I've had the opportunity to be a part of. And before I kick this off, I just want to say that I'll be probably talking about a few different brands. These brands, I have no connection with these brands. I'm just merely using these as an example because maybe they're an incredible brand. I'm following them. Maybe I use the brand, but just know that I'm not heavily invested or speaking about any brands in particular. So I started at Salesforce about 4 years ago. And when I started at Salesforce, I started out on a really cool product called Pardot. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with Pardot, it's our B2B marketing automation platform, and it lives inside of Salesforce. So Pardot was actually acquired through an acquisition, and before it was actually integrated into the Salesforce platform, as we now all know it, it was a standalone app, so you had to actually log in through your browser. So back when I joined Pardot back in 2017, it was really at an interesting time because the engineering team was actually working on the code and all of the plumbing to take it from that standalone app and bring it into the platform. So during this time, it was my job to kind of figure out how to position it in the right way, how to make a big splash, because we were going to launch this new product essentially at Dreamforce. So because this was launching at Dreamforce, we really knew that we needed to nail the messaging. So we rolled out the first rounds of messaging, and we tested it with our trailblazers, we tested it with analysts, and no surprise, we didn't quite hit the nail on the head the first time. So we went to our platform team, and we had a lot of conversations with our product teams. I'm like, hey, what can we do with this? And it was really interesting because they had a whole different way of looking at it. And their positioning was, hey, it's not just the marketing data that you're moving back and forth from Salesforce to the app. You're actually bringing sales and marketing together into one platform. And, at that moment, no other company can say that they did that. So I just remember thinking, wow, that's a lot bigger than the app that we're currently working with. So ultimately, that's the messaging that we took, and that was what we used for our launch in 2017. So the messaging actually worked great. And by the end of it, I kept thinking back to, wow, there's a lot of flexibility in how we position products, especially when it's around software and technology. And there's a lot of things that you can actually do to make messaging, not only more strategic, but also emotional and, really kind of fun. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today, because, we all have that opportunity with whether it be the products that we're working on or the company that we're working with, and how we're positioning and how we're messaging those. So to do that, I wanted to start with just some of the basics of what positioning is and, really what that word means. And so the word position, it's basically all about finding that position for your product or maybe your company inside of somebody else's brain. And so the way that your brain works is, nothing really sits in your brain by itself. Everything is connected to something else. So think about when, you go to sleep at night, your brain is basically trying to organize your thoughts and relate all of those thoughts together. So as a marketer, you need to know that because you need to find that position for your product. So here's a great example. So when I say the word college, this is when your brain is going to go in and it's going to go find all of those associations that it experienced in college. So maybe it was the dorm you lived in or the friends you had, or maybe even the classes or the bars that you went to. Whatever they are, you have those associations with college and your brain brings those up because they're all connected together. Now, products and services and companies, they pretty much all work the same way. So for products and the associations that we have with products, you can think about those associations in kind of a couple of different levels. One of the associations that I want to highlight, and mostly because I really like this product, is Coke. So let's first, highlight the aspirational message, which is basically what the company wants your immediate thought to be. And for Coca-Cola or Coke, it might be happiness or feeling refreshed. Those are the words that Coke really compresses on us. And then there's the experiential association. So things like, hey, it might have a lot of sugar in it, or maybe it might not be that healthy. These are the things that we experience when we think about Coke. And then there's the influential association. So these are the things that, maybe we read about in the press or read about online. And these are going to give us that different set of associations. And our brain kind of puts all of that together. That's the brand and how you create a brand and the associations with the brand. So as a marketer, we need to understand how associations work so we can get the right words and the right language to our customers, which really help to create that position with our customers. Now, one thing I want to highlight, because we've all either been there, we've all seen this done, is creating a new space in someone's mind for a new category or maybe a new product or maybe a new technology. It's really hard because your brain, really wants to put it somewhere. It really wants to associate it with something, but it can't always do that if it doesn't know kind of where to plug it in. So we see a lot of that with new technologies that we have or maybe that we launch. A few years ago, Salesforce launched blockchain, and I actually had the opportunity to meet with that team and while they were building out the messaging. And it was a really interesting conversation because the feedback that we got from our customers that we took overall was our customers weren't sure how to associate with it. We also saw this about 20 years ago when Salesforce started. There was a team that was launching the messaging around cloud CRM, and they struggled with how to position cloud CRM. And that was a really tough place to be in because, customers were using on-prem CRM, so it was kind of no surprise that we were being associated with the likes of Siebel, which obviously wasn't quite the positioning that Salesforce was looking for because it wasn't differentiating enough, and Salesforce really wanted to move away from the on-premise that lived in our heads. And so the core differentiator at the time was what we called multi-tenancy. And that's basically the cloud. So its ability to run a whole bunch of customers onto one instance of a product. And so that's what really set us apart and really made us different. And there's a lot of benefits with that. The customers, they couldn't get out of their current IT space in their head that Salesforce was actually CRM in the cloud, and just because it wasn't quite what they're used to. So explaining multi-tenancy, that was really, really tough, and nobody quite got that either. So Salesforce came up with the idea called metaphor marketing. So what that is essentially creating a metaphor for your product, your technology, or your company that, is easily understandable and also easy, relatable, and desirable. And it kind of explains, what you do to associate with another brand. So I'm going to walk through a few examples of that. And, technically some of our analogies and our metaphors, are used everywhere and anywhere. So hope you find some great use out of this. So for Salesforce, that metaphor was Amazon. So just like you point to your browser in Amazon, you point to your browser in Salesforce and you get all the benefits of that enterprise application. So here's an example. I'm going to use a metaphor for an apartment building. So when you rent an apartment building, you get infrastructure, you get security, electricity, maybe you even get a swimming pool. Except if you're living in San Francisco, you probably don't get a swimming pool, but you likely don't pay for all of that separately. When you rent an apartment building, it's easy to assume that you're renting the apartment building with all of those amenities included. Well, Salesforce is basically the same thing. It offers the same thing. So when you purchase Salesforce, it comes with those real-time updates. All of your information across all of your org is in the cloud, so you don't need to upload it. And everybody's essentially working from the same set of data. So similar, when I think about Chatter, I think of Chatter as Facebook for the enterprise. Or if you've ever been on AppExchange, AppExchange is like iTunes for enterprise app. And, even when we think about Einstein, that brings a whole set of associations to what Einstein is. Einstein is really smart, innovative. Einstein's a trailblazer. Now, all of those associations are immediately, kind of attached to our product. So when we start using those words, it's an easy way to kind of think about positioning a product in a new space by creating these associations. So let's switch gears just a little bit and talk about repositioning. We know that positioning of any product can be tricky, and it can also take a lot of time and a lot of research. And repositioning your product when it already has kind of a positioning in somebody else's head, can also be tough, if not even tougher. So we'll do that a lot, and we'll see that a lot when technology changes or maybe markets change or we need to evolve and change. But it's really hard to say, no, we're not really this, now we're this. And you've kind of got to figure out how to move your positioning for a product when you do that. And I think a good example of this is Toyota. So essentially, hopefully everybody here knows Toyota. It's a car manufacturer, and they started out making, relatively mid-sized cars, but they created this great brand association around reliability. And it worked for them. But it also came to a point in the company's history where they wanted to move upscale into more luxurious cars. So they couldn't take their position and just say, hey, we're Toyota, and now we're going to start selling luxury cars. And they couldn't do that because, people just couldn't wrap their head around a luxury Toyota. So what they did was they created this whole new brand, and it's called Lexus. So we know that it's expensive to do that, but sometimes you kind of just need to shift from where you are and create a new brand around that. So we'll see that today in our space, especially the SMB space. Salesforce is trying to sell more SMB, but the Salesforce brand essentially that we've created is really associated with those big enterprise Fortune 500 companies. So over the years, what we've done is ironic because we actually started in the SMB space, but over the years we've kind of like moved up market, and we've kind of gone really big up market, and so we have a lot of Fortune 500 companies. But we're trying to do that, and we've been doing it, and the path that we've taken is we created a new brand, and it's called Essentials. And if you're not familiar with Essentials, Essentials is our SMB brand for Salesforce. And so we use that name coupled with Salesforce to start creating that brand new association. So another example is, in terms of associations, is Zendesk. Zendesk is incredibly easy to use. It's simple. It's made for small businesses, and kind of the opposite from us is that Zendesk is trying to move into the enterprise space. So they've created Zendesk Enterprise. So it's always a challenge kind of moving your positioning into a new space. So excited to see, how they take it and where they go. So let's talk about cars and positioning. So I chose Oldsmobile because, during grad school, I spent a little bit of time, kind of dissecting their messaging and actually working on a project around it. So I have a little bit of insight into what I wanted to share. There's a ton of information about the repositioning campaigns online, and it's a lot of fun to read about. So Oldsmobile, I'm sure everybody here's heard of it. I believe my grandmother even had an Oldsmobile. But, around the 1950s, 1960s, they positioned themselves as, fast, fun, young, and they sold a lot of cars to the younger consumer, the younger buyer. And at the time, the cars, they were sporty, they were super fun. And you can actually see some of their ads here, make a date with 88. They're trying to appeal to that younger buyer, and they did really incredibly well over the years. Then that buyer started to age, and they started to kind of adopt the car for that fit their family, fit their kids. They needed cars that had 4 doors. And so they kind of evolved with that demographic, as they got older, and they did really, really well. Their sales kept going up over time. You can see dips and recessions here and there, but, every car manufacturer felt that in kind of the early 70s and the early 80s. But overall, they did really well. But then they got to the point where to grow, they needed to shift and reposition themselves for a younger audience. And that's where, all the growth in the industry was. And with a brand like Oldsmobile, now selling sedans, and then they got the word old in their name, that was probably kind of hard to do. But they came out with a whole new brand campaign, and, they had print ads, they had outdoor advertising, they had TV ads, and they even coined the phrase, "This is not your father's Oldsmobile." So, trying to appeal to this younger audience, and, it kind of backfired. And the problem with it is it was your father's Oldsmobile, because that car was actually the same car that your father probably had. So they didn't change the product, but they changed the marketing. And that's one of the biggest learnings I think we can take from this. Your positioning needs to be reinforced by the product, or you're just not going to get super far. So it's important to know when you're positioning and repositioning a product. We want to create this position in people's heads. And now I want to give you a framework and also a couple ways of thinking about how to position a little bit more strategically, and also how we can bring a little bit more emotion into what it is that we do. So I think about this, along 2 different dimensions. We don't always think about emotion when we sell to a buyer with technology, but we need to think about that. And, second, how do we make it more strategic? Because when you make something more strategic, people are going to spend more money on it. And I think a great example of this is Tesla. They're up in the upper right-hand quadrant of this square. So I don't know if you've ever talked to somebody with a Tesla, or maybe you have friends that have Teslas. I don't have a Tesla. I wish I had a Tesla. But, there's a big emotional attachment there. And, if you talk to somebody with a Tesla, they'll sit and talk to you about their Tesla for, 30 minutes. It's all electric. They're doing great things for the environment. And, people pay a lot of money for that. And those associations are super highly important to their brand. But not everybody, can be up there on the right. When you get down to kind of the bottom right there, then that's where you're going to see brands like Oracle or SIP. So down on the bottom right, you're going to start to see technology that's a little bit more strategic. And Oracle is going to be one of those. CIOs spend a ton of money on Oracle to run their businesses. So, it's really, really important. But if you ever read the content on their website, or maybe if you go to a keynote, it's not super, super emotional. And maybe if you've ever been to Oracle Open World, it's really geared towards those IT folks, and that's pretty much about it. There isn't a ton of emotion behind it. And then in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to get brands that are emotional and people have a really high and strong attachment to. So Starbucks I think is a great example of this. They're not really super like that strategic. Some people could disagree with me, and that's fine. You can argue that caffeine is strategic because, people need it. But the brand certainly is very highly emotional, and there's a lot of buy-in when it comes to Starbucks. People love it, and they have a really, really high affinity for it. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to show you an ad from a company, and we'll talk about it at the end. I think that it's an ad from Apple, and I think that they've done an incredible job at taking, some kind of like boring B2B technology and turning it into something that's incredibly emotional and something that we can all relate to.
I just got us a meeting with Vivian.
What? How?
I just bumped into her.
And what, you just asked for a meeting?
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do?
Actually,
When?
just now.
No, when's the meeting?
Oh, Thursday, 8 a.m.
Next Thursday.
Yes.
No. This Thursday.
What?
That's impossible.
We can do this, okay? Roundbox is back.
It's just a sketch. That's all we have.
2 days? We need 2 weeks.
This is how we get off this floor.
Dave, can you get some sales figures on pizza boxes?
I feel sick.
It's so simple. Round pizza, round box. Perfect.
Hey, who's hungry?
We have to prove what's wrong with pizza boxes.
They're square.
Wasted space.
Yeah.
Do I really have to go see Mike in finance?
Yep.
Hey, Mike. I was wondering if you could send me this
Inbox.
We have this idea. We need some sort of 3D prototype.
I gotta pick up the kids.
I just want to get you all together. We need to find a name for the box.
Roundabout.
Squircle?
Circle box?
Who's that?
Hey, Siri, turn on Do Not Disturb. Brian.
I'm awake!
Hey, Siri, tell Bridget I'm running late.
No. This is wrong. This is all wrong.
Dave, can you please double check those figures for
Did anyone hear from Ed in warehouse?
He's putting together the prototype now.
What are you guys working on?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Move that over there.
Make that title bigger.
Guys!
We're almost there.
You got all works. I don't even.
What are you doing, bud? Hey, can I have that back?
I'll email you the video.
Just airdrop it to me.
Sweet. You guys, I just got the prototype.
Whoa. This is gonna look so good in the presentation. Awesome.
Wow.
I'm awake.
It's time.
Did anyone press the button?
All right, so you saw a little bit of Siri, you saw an alarm clock, a lot of collaboration. There were some iPads, some laptops, different Apple products, all kind of in there by themselves and separately, could be boring technology. But what they did was that they didn't really showcase the technology. They showed how people used it and the outcome of the technology. And, that's where emotion comes in. Our goal is we want to offer the ability to show the impact of your products and what it does on people's lives. So the next slide I'm going to show you, is a typical framework that we use for all of our products. There are about 5 or 6 different frameworks that we use, but I'm going to highlight just this one, and I'm going to show you how we use it to make our product more strategic and more emotional. So I'm going to start here with the positioning statement. And this is tried and true in marketing. I know it probably looks a little old school, but it actually works, and it works great. It really highlights the problem that we're trying to solve and with the solution, and then also the benefits that we offer. So what we do is we first look at, how we are different. So I took our traditional positioning statement, which has all of these elements that we added to the top, and we call these trends or a shift. And this is kind of what takes you to where we are today with our product. So it makes it more relevant in terms of, what's happening around the world. So I want to walk you through each one of these elements and talk to you about how to make each one of them more strategic and more emotional, just to give you some ideas and some frameworks around it. So before I do that, I just want to say that I'm going to apply this to sales. So we use this obviously when we position all of our products. So our trend that we address is the 4th industrial revolution. And you can see that our target are C-level executives who are disconnected from their customers. And then the solution is our customer success platform. So the benefits are sales, service, marketing, growth, loyalty, productivity, things like that. And our differentiators are 1, we're a company based on values, and 2, the customer success platform. So we can help you integrate and help buy into anything and everything you do. So with Einstein, we're going to help you evolve into everything you do and really give you that 360-degree view of your customer. And oh, by the way, we also have this awesome Trailblazer community, and that's going to help make you even more successful. So those are all of the little things that's going to make you different. And, if you look at this is also what we use for our pitch deck. So what we call a first call deck. So, this is essentially how we use these frameworks today. And, this is actually one of the flows that works really, really well. So this is why I kind of wanted to show you this framework. So one thing I want to highlight is also relevancy. So let me start out with the first part of this, the shift that happens today. And we use the fourth industrial revolution here at Salesforce because it's emotional, right? And when we relate this to big shifts, and I'll use the fourth industrial revolution as an example, we're talking about losing jobs and the need to build new skills. And, that really hits home for a lot of companies because they're out running, into this issue today. But it's also strategic because it can make a huge impact on your company. So if you can make this transformation, become more connected to your customers, integrate intelligence into everything you do, and then in the end result is Salesforce is going to take you on that path. Now in the lower right, most technologies, and I think SAP is a good example, is they're strategic, but they're not that emotional. So it's something maybe a CIO might get a little emotional about, but really it's a technology. So then in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to get things in technology like a UI shift. And this can be extremely emotional, especially for people that might work inside, maybe a ton of different browsers, or they've got a ton of tabs open and then they can never quite find what they're looking for. But really, it's up to us to take those users and explain how it can be beneficial. So let's talk about how we do this now with Experience Cloud. So I can take Experience Cloud and I can sell it to a partner manager at a tech company. And I can say, hey, this is really going to power your partner portal. And I can talk about closing deals faster with partners. Now I can take that same technology and I can sell it to somebody in the financial services industry. And, they can use it to power their broker community. But then I can also take that same product and position it to somebody that might work in HR. And, they can use it to help their employees collaborate and be more productive. So really different messages, benefits, different buyers, but overall it's the same technology. So in a situation like that, you really need to create a messaging hierarchy of what, the core positioning is for your product, and then how to map to those different use cases, those different solutions, and those different benefits. So it's a good place to be in because it gives you a lot of options of, where to sell, but also the highest level, how you position that. And then at once, you have your target. And here's where I think you can start adding more emotion into how you're positioning what you're selling. Look at emotion as a great starting point. What is the pain for your product? What is the problem that you're addressing? I've seen a few positioning statements that say, I need this, or maybe I need to sell more, or maybe I need to work faster. I need to find answers faster. Those are really needs and not really pains. So, it's not that emotional, but if you can convert that pain into something like, hey, my sales are down 5%, I need to sell more, that's more than likely going to resonate more and maybe hit on something that might affect someone's job, or possibly that they need to do something different in their job. And that's a little bit closer to where you want to be. So can you address pain as a disruption in someone's business? Probably. So if you're selling into retail today and you bring up Amazon, that's probably going to bring up a lot of angst for a customer because, a lot of companies are having a really tough time competing with Amazon right now. And just like bringing that up or, talking about that is probably going to get you a foot in the door and possibly a conversation with a customer because the impact to their company is real. So that's a pain, that affects an entire business, not just someone's job or someone's department. Think about that and how emotional you can get as you start to position your products. So you've identified the pain and now you want to show a solution. So here's where you're going to start to get more strategic. And this really goes back to that opening example I had around, is it an app? Is it a platform? Is it a marketplace? So how do you think about that spectrum? And I think at the lowest level of kind of being strategic, our features, we can market our features and our products. And honestly, when we started Salesforce, we were a bunch of different features. It was accounts, opportunities, and contacts. And that's essentially all it was. And, through time, it started to become an application. So we had more workflow, more processes there. We sold applications, which was obviously more strategic than just, selling features. But even better as we evolved over time and we started to open up those apps with APIs and then developer kits, we became a platform. And that was much bigger because now customers and partners, they could start building things on our platform. And so that's when we started to open up new revenue streams for other companies. And that's what started to create that ecosystem around us that became even bigger and even better and more strategic. And then, once that started happening, we were able to create that marketplace. So now there's this whole economy around Salesforce and the app exchange and companies building products and companies selling products and products that they have now and they have new ideas for. So it becomes even more powerful than what our apps even could have been, or even what our platform could do. So it just grew tremendously over time. And today, I think we're at a point where, we're becoming even more strategic in that where we talk about solutions. And when we think about solution, a solution really encompasses everything below this. So if we're selling into sales or service or marketing, a solution really needs to include some apps, probably the platform, a partner ecosystem, where partners can plug into, and, different things that companies are missing. And it's really up to us to figure out how to package that together and how to talk about it in the right way for a person who has a pain or a problem. And that's where we're going. That's where we're going to help solve those solutions for them. So we do this, in industries. We can take this by line of business, but this is actually the next step for Salesforce and how we think about all these components and how they work together. So once you've identified those solutions, you really want to go down the path and figure out what are the benefits of this solution. And here's where we go back to that emotion again. At the lowest level, the solution we have is the metrics for the business that make improvements to a business. So 30% faster or closer to 10% more productivity. And those are all great metrics to solve your problem, but they aren't that emotional, right? So it's kind of solving a business problem, but no one can really relate that to a person. So when we can bring more emotion in, that's where we can start to talk about the achievements that we can help people deliver with our products. And then when we bring that emotion in, this is where our trailblazer marketing goes. This is where we identify those people, how they use Salesforce, and how those trailblazers have made an impact on their department or their company and all of the people we work with. And it just starts to get more emotional and more relatable to the people in the business. And then finally, if we can address that level of transformation, connect customers in a whole new way of blaze trails for them, that's the highest level of value that we can deliver, where companies or people are really making an impact on an entire company or even an entire economy. And that's where those huge amounts of benefits lie. So ideally, all three of these work together into your positioning, and then you can have that product level that delivers the metrics, at a personal level and makes people successful at a higher level. Now, you're helping a company achieve some business value. So think about how to weave all of those things together to position your products. And then finally, the most important part of this is differentiation. Hey, we work in really competitive markets today, and we really need to be different, and we need to show our difference. And, sometimes this is our lead message. And, there are many different ways to differentiate. You can differentiate on price. You can lower your price. And of course, the danger is that your competitor does that right away. So there's only a few companies that can do that really well. And Walmart is, they do it all the time, and they're one of them. They compete on price, but they've also built a company and a supply chain that's the lowest in the industry. They've built a culture at the company where everybody knows that they need to get the cheapest price out of their vendors. And they do that really well and probably better than anyone else. So they have that advantage there with that. But it's not something that most of us really want to do. So after price, you can differentiate on features, right? Hey, we have this, or, we have this feature, they don't, here's our demo. And then you can show that. And, that works for a little bit. And then, the competitor kind of figures it out, and, they can put a demo together too, and they can build, the feature. And maybe it lasts a couple of months, or maybe it lasts long term, and it could be a sustainable advantage or not. But after the word starts to get out a little bit, more interesting is when you start to show the success of a product and a higher performance of your product. So performance actually starts to come through, and you see it a lot with hardware vendors. We're 20% faster, or we're 10 times faster, whatever it is or whatever it takes. It's hard to get to that place because you need a working product that an analyst can verify that performance. So an analyst can verify that performance, and you can showcase that. So it just takes a little bit longer for companies to catch up with that. So similar to that, you can think about the performance in terms of, business benefits, 20% higher revenues with Salesforce, or 10% higher customer loyalty. We have customer proof points that customers have shown what they've done. And it's a great differentiator too, because it takes companies a really long time to get there. Actually, if you have the product in use, showcase it and then validate it, and be willing to speak about it, that's going to help tremendously. So I have a lot of Oracle examples in here, and it's mostly because I was just kind of looking at what they were doing. It's kind of fun to do. And then, finally, leadership is even harder to do than these others. And we do that with, the number one, just going to build out all of these here. We do this with the number one CRM. And, and all of our ad campaigns are around that. And something that took us years to get to. And, no other company can really claim that. No other company is going to be able to probably claim that for years. One more piece that's important to highlight, and a key part of our positioning, is our trailblazers. And our trailblazers are there. There are customers that use our technology to revolutionize their companies and power their success. And then finally, there's something kind of above and beyond all of that, where you can change your company culture in the way that you operate and talk about that in a way that's completely different than any other company. So really quick, I just want to give you an example of how we do this and how we use it to kind of bring these two things together. So last year, we launched My Trailhead at the Sydney World Tour. And so I was looking at the marketing material, and I was looking at the positioning statement, and it was written out just like this. It started out with the fourth industrial revolution, impacting jobs and skills. How do I reskill my workforce? And all of these technologies as they change today. And the risk and the pain is what a lot of companies, they can't do this, and they don't, because they may not have a culture of learning inside of their company. And the result is that they've had 64% higher employee turnover. So there's some angst and some anxiety there with that problem. And the solution is My Trailhead. Surprisingly enough, reinventing learning for your company, and the benefits of higher productivity, less stress, happier people. And our differentiators are, it runs on our platform, so you can customize it just like you can customize Salesforce. So you can see where the emotion was pulled in, and then they also have the strategic side as well. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that I shared a little bit of insight about how we think about positioning products for our company.